And I want to share with you a memo that just crossed right now. JD Vance, he's actually flagging this one. He claims, this is the Senator, JD Vance is claiming in a memo to his Republican colleagues that there is an impeachment time bomb buried in the bill's text in the case that Trump should try to halt funding for Ukraine while president of the United States. So in other words, this is their way of saying, okay, if we get this through and we get this $60 billion, it doesn't matter who's going to be president. We're going to make sure that it comes through no matter what. According to JD Vance, his interpretation of this is, quote, the supplemental represents an attempt by the foreign policy blob deep state to stop President Trump from pursuing his desired policy. And if he does so anyways, to provide grounds to impeach him and undermine his administration. This is, again, JD Vance just now, moments ago, writing in a memo calling for all Republicans to oppose this bill's passage. This bill that would allocate $60 billion to Ukraine. It's part of a larger bill overall, $95.3 billion total, includes some help for Israel as well as assistance for Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and as well as funds for U.S. allies in the Indo-Pacific. So again, let me go back to his memo. Vance is contending that the foreign aid bill includes basically all this foreign military financing in Ukraine, as well as a Ukraine security assistance initiative from which Donald Trump will not be able to get out from under. So even if he comes into office, he's elected, he comes in and says, you know what, I don't want this war going on with Ukraine. According to JD's interpretation of the bill, he's not going to have much of a choice, right? So there's this impeachment time bomb. We need to look further into that, again, with the specific language that he's citing. But if that's the case, it shows you just the level of hysteria, the level of panic right now that Donald Trump is going to do something that they don't want him to do. But here's the thing. Keep in mind that there's a lot of spin in both directions going on. And it's why it's so critical and so important to go back to what we like to call in history circles as primary sources, right? What was going on at the time some of these deals were made? What did we seem to promise to Russia? I mean, if you listen to Putin and you listen to that 2-hour-long plus interview that Tucker Carlson just did at the Kremlin with Vladimir Putin, then what you hear from that is somebody who is really pretty perturbed, pretty annoyed, pretty distressed that, in his words, the U.S. didn't follow through with its promises. In other words, as Russia sees it, as Putin sees it, when that wall came down, guess what? We were not there to then pick fights with Russia. We were not there to encroach on their border. Ukraine was going to be this territory that we didn't actually infringe upon, right? With NATO, it would be like if the Chinese suddenly showed up in Mexico, which, by the way, I kind of think they've been doing, just saying. We have our Monroe Doctrine, which is supposed to mean that we take precedence, right, in our own hemisphere. Well, Russia felt the same way.